Hey readers, Chris here, and today we are going to be reviewing the first Mistborn trilogy. This is a bit of a difficult one to review, because it feels strange to look at only one part of a series in isolation, but after some thought, we have decided that each era needs to be reviewed independently, because they are largely self-contained stories. We won't be including anything outside the main trilogy, which includes supplemental material set during the same period. With that out of the way, let's discuss Mistborn. This is the first series I've reviewed on Bratton Book Club, where I had to crack open my copy to read the beginning again. I'm not sure if that's because the opening sequence is ultimately forgettable, or if it's simply a byproduct of having a poor memory. But either way, it does not bode particularly well when compared to our previous entries. However, let's not get ahead of ourselves. The first scene does a moderately good job of setting the stage for the story to come. The further you read, the more obvious it is that Sanderson engaged in a fair amount of setup before he started actually telling a story. But many consider that par for the course for such a large fantasy series. The more I read in preparation for writing the script, the more I realized how much I had forgotten, and I ended up reading the entire trilogy again. I forgot how early the big bad was set up. I forgot how quickly we came to simply disdain the nobility on Scadrial. Heck, I even forgot that the opening line of the book perfectly captures the state of the world Sanderson so meticulously crafted. There's nothing particularly wrong with the setup. The premise is interesting from the jump, and it invites us to feel emotion almost immediately. What it doesn't do is ask us to think too deeply about why things are the way they are. In fact, the most noteworthy thing in the whole first chapter was trying to figure out how an uneducated peasant possessed a vocabulary roughly on par with the only noble we'd seen thus far. The more I read, the more strange the peasant's speech seemed in general. It was not crafted or curated. It had no discernible differences compared to the nobility, and as far as I know, were never given any logical reason for it. That seems to be a world break in the first few pages, and I found myself more bothered by it than I probably should have been. I don't typically read with a critical eye during my leisure time, and I don't remember even noticing this during my previous reads, which is probably more indicative of my lack of awareness than anything else. I know this seems nitpicky, and it is, but there's a good reason for it. Sanderson is an epic world builder, and much of Mistborn is on that scale. But it feels like some of the minutiae are lost in it. It's hard to create a world that begs questions when there are small inconsistencies or illogics that permeate it. And that's just it. We're handed basically everything we need in order to lose ourselves. But at first blush, there's not much substance there. Believe me, when I picked the book up to skim through for this review, I found myself falling into the story. I love this book, this whole series. It's gripping and it's fun. The characters are the center point for that fun. Kelsier and Vin are two of the best characters in fantasy. Their relationship is so strange and wonderful, and the way they interact is sometimes hilarious, sometimes wrought with emotion. Most of the time, it is just plain fun. The cast of side characters fit neatly into common tropes, but they're executed with near perfection. Even when I found myself correctly predicting their reactions to stimuli, I still thoroughly enjoyed reading, because I knew that Sanderson would hit me with unique and interesting solutions to their problems. Most of those solutions came in the form of magic, and honestly, I think that Sanderson built this entire world simply to play with the magic system that he designed. I can vividly remember being 16 and reading the blurb, thinking how dumb the magic seemed. Eating metal, really? But once I read it, I was convinced. The level of detail is insane, and the way it integrates perfectly into the world goes a long way to making it believable. I know what characters can and cannot do, and when I don't know, I can make educated guesses. So whenever Sanderson does something clever to solve a problem, it almost feels like figuring out a complex math problem or puzzle. All the pieces are there. I could have come to the same conclusion myself, and that makes it significantly more engaging. The fact that the whole story, and in fact world, is predicated on this same logic means that the pieces are there for us to solve this story's problems ourselves. I find this simultaneously fascinating and infuriating. Fascinating because of how difficult it must be to write like that. Infuriating because I did not figure it out myself. Much like Allomancy, the themes in Mistborn are rigid and easily identifiable. There is little nuance in this department, and it's a shame because it feels like Sanderson sacrificed thematic depth in his race for a logically sound magic system. As the story progresses, themes are introduced and explored more deeply, but that is more the consequence of a broadening plot than any intentional design. Whether to trust, how and who to love, whether faith is good regardless of the object of that faith, are major center points of the book. There are other themes and sub-themes, but many of them are so in your face that it's difficult to mention without delving into spoiler territory. The thematics of this trilogy might be my biggest disappointment with them, and I don't say that to be mean. I expect more subtlety from my reading than is on offer here. There is nothing inherently wrong about books on the shallower end of the theme pool, especially if you read for pure enjoyment over critical thinking. One thing that did not disappoint me is how well Brandon utilized his prose in this story. It's not beautiful or flowery. It's not anything special at all. It is easy to read, engaging, and offers just enough in the way of depth to remain addictive without giving so much as to bog you down. I enjoy Brandon's prose because of its Spartan nature and how easily it reads, not despite that. That leads us right into the final topic in today's review: pacing. Mistborn might be the most well-paced trilogy I have ever read. One story beat flows into the next, and despite some small hang-ups in the second book, it is incredibly smooth and easy to read. The worst part of this is simply finding a place to put the book down when it's 5 a.m. and you desperately need to sleep. Writing reviews is hard. There are several things to think about here, and I want to give you the opportunity to go over them before I present my conclusion. I think that Mistborn is a largely wonderful, although forgettable, romp through a crazy world. It is fast, fun, and wild. While it lacks the capacity to incite deep thinking on critical themes, that is easily made up for if all you are after is an exciting story. That's it for us. If you enjoyed this video, please consider leaving a like and hitting subscribe. We'll see you next time.